Okay, jumping straight back into 1.4, what we can see here, this is making the business effective. So this is a really important topic. However, it's not the longest. So we're just going to quickly run through this because there's some really key ideas that you're going to need to know. Most topics in this, all the subtopics are included on the exams. So we're going to cover 4.1 liability and ownership, 4.1 franchises, 4.2 business location, 4.3 the marketing mix, and 4.4 business plans. All right, so liability and ownership. So this has some clear definitions. So you're a sole trader. We know that this is the smallest type of business. It's owned and run by a single person. I'm calling it unincorporated as well, because these are some key ideas that we need to make sure that our terminology is correct for. So the next one there is partnerships. So this is an unincorporated as well. It's a business which has two or more owners who share the risk of that business. And then when we start going into private limited companies, these are when business becomes incorporated. So that is when a sole trader and a partnership, if they decide that they want to incorporate their business, it's owned by shareholders, and shares can only be sold. So in a private limited company, privately, so it's usually to family and friends. And when we know the difference, a public limited company is when we can sell shares on the stock market. So I want to just reiterate. So sole traders and partnerships have unlimited liability because they are unincorporated. Once they become incorporated, that's when they are a company structure where they're not individual owners anymore. The shareholders are the owners of the business, and that is when there is limited liability. So we'll talk about more about those in a minute, but these are all concepts you should be familiar with already. So with sole traders, advantages of being sole trader is that a sole trader can make the decision themselves. They're quick and easy to set up. The sole trader gets to keep all of the profits for themselves, and the financial information for the business is kept private. So they don't need to disclose it to anybody else. It's just one person's business. Disadvantage of this is a sole trader has unlimited liability. So we'll talk about that in a second, but ultimately unlimited liability is that if you make some bad choices, you are personally liable for your creditors. So if you don't pay your bills, people can come after you personally, not just your business. Ultimately, that's what unlimited liability is, but we'll go through those definitions shortly. When you're a sole trader, it can be difficult to raise finance, and that is because just because you're on your own and there's a lot of higher risk when you're on your own, it can be really hard for other people to lend you money. It can be difficult to enjoy economies of scale. So when we talk about bulk buying, so when you're bulk buying, often the idea is that you can buy massive amounts of stock at a discounted price, so you get a better profit margin on them. When you're a sole trader and you've got a small business, you don't really have a lot of places to store lots of stock, so therefore you don't really get those benefits. And there is also a problem of continuity. If the sole trader retires or dies, often the business just gets shut down. I know that there are cases where it can be left to someone, but ultimately when you're a sole trader, it is just your business. It's a lot harder to hand your business over to someone because everything is registered in your own name. Now, partnerships. So the advantage of this is each partner can contribute to the finance, which means if you've got £100,000 and your mate has £100,000 and you go into business together, you've now all of a sudden doubled the money that you've got for your owner's equity to start up your business. Each partner can bring ideas and different skills. So one person might be really good with customers. The other person might be really good at designing a product. So between the two of you, you actually get to divide those details. Obviously, partnerships, you can have more than two people. Generally, it's up to about 20. But ultimately, you can have 4 or 5 partners into a business all contributing financially. The workload can be shared amongst the partners, and the business's financial information is kept private. What I mean, it's kept private between all the partners. It's not publicly available for the general public to see your information. Disadvantages are partnerships have unlimited liability, which means that if your partner makes some risky decisions, you can still be personally liable for it because all the owners or all the partners are personally liable for their business. There might be disagreements between partners, so you both visualize things going in different directions and create a bit of conflict, and profits are shared between the partners according to their agreed ratios. So what that basically means, generally for a lot of partners, they're all like 50-50. So, whoever makes profit, you keep half, I keep half. But sometimes it could be, maybe because only one partner brought in more of the money, the startup capital and things like that. So maybe they'll decide that you get 30% of the profits, I get 70% of the profits, or something like that. So it's an agreement, but basically all the profits have to be shared with someone. So private limited companies, it's easy to raise finance by selling shares of the business, which means you need to raise a whole heap of money. You can sell 20% of the business for £250,000 or whatever your business is deemed valued at. But the owners have a limited liability. So this means that you can make some bad choices in the business. The business might go bust, but your creditors can only come to the extent of the business. They cannot take your personal assets. They cannot take your car. They cannot take your house. Disadvantages of a private limited company is that overall control can be lost because there's not really, you might be the CEO of a business that you started, but because it's a private limited company, other people might own shares of your business. So if other people own more than 50% of your business, they can push you out. So they can also decide how they want the company to be run, even though it was your business and your idea to start with. The company's accounts and financial information are not private. So although it's called a private limited company, what we mean by that is all shareholders need access to the company, get to the financial information. So everyone is obligated. So you have to make that information available for anyone who owns a share in the business, whether they own 0.5%, whether they own 10%, they all get access to that financial information. And all of your information does need to be disclosed to the UK Companies House. So all that information is readily available because you have to submit your information for your taxes, because your business is taxed separately to you as a person. So you have to supply all of your financial information to the government as well. These are some disadvantages there. And it's also more legal paperwork involved when setting up, as it's a more complex business structure. Same thing goes for a public limited company. There's additional rigmarole because of the fact that it's on the stock exchange, and people all around the world are allowed to look at your company's finances because they could be prospective investors or currently investing in your business. So here we start talking about limited and unlimited liability. So unlimited liability, if the business fails, the owner can lose everything to cover the debts of the business. With limited liability, the owner will only lose the value of his investment or her investment into the business, their shares. So this could basically mean if they have put in 100,000 to the business, they can lose that 100,000, but they can't lose any more than that. Now, the types of businesses this relate to: sole traders and partnerships. The owners could be forced to sell everything that they own to cover their debts. Limited companies, so both limited, so private limited companies are expressed as LTD, and public limited companies are expressed as PLC. It's owned by the shareholders and they will only lose their shares. So that's the idea. So steps to start a business. These are just some ideas. You do not need to know all of these things, but it's about recognizing yourself as an entrepreneur before you start, generating your business ideas, researching the validity of your ideas, testing your business premise in the real world, creating an initial business plan, setting up the right legal structure for your business, understanding your financial, accounting, and tax obligations, protecting your business from legal and disaster perspective, so like insurances, so making sure that you can't be sued, or if you've got a factory and it's on a earthquake-prone area, that you're not going to just lose your business like that. Creating an identity for your business, which includes building a brand and a website, so having a way that people will recognize your brand, getting your business essentials sorted, so that could be getting an office space, getting your stationery, connecting your phone lines, looking at your funding options for starting your business. So that's about where the money is going to come from. Are you going to get a loan? Are you going to get a grant? Are people investing in your business? Working on your initial marketing and sales strategies. How are you going, do you need an initial team, or are you just going to work by yourself? What will be your recruitment strategy? How are you going to manage people inside your team? What is going to be your company culture? So starting your business while keeping a full-time job. So the idea is that you can still be earning a full-time salary, even though you're not making sales yet for your business. All right. So first exam practice for today is what happens when a business becomes a private limited company. This is a 1-mark question. This is a multiple choice. So A, intrigue, B, merger, C, incorporated, D, corporation, or E, acquisition. Pause your video here, write it down, have a think about it, and let's get going. Okay, so this is the next part of the same topic, so franchising. So here we've just got this example. If you wanted to, or in this case, we've got Mr. Johnson wanted to open up a burger restaurant. He could either open up his business as a sole trader. He's going to have to design all the recipes. He'll create a brand and pay for advertisements. The alternative is Mr. Johnson could pay McDonald's to set up his own McDonald's, and he'll be given all the recipes already. He'll have created the brand image. Well, sorry, the brand image already exists, and all the advertising and sponsorship deals are already done by McDonald's UK. So what is franchising? Franchise is when one business gives another business the right to trade under their name and sell their products. So in this case, Mr. Johnson could pay £30,000, then open up a burger restaurant that sold McDonald's burgers and had a big McDonald's sign. Now, although it's Mr. Johnson's business, he pays McDonald's to use their name and reputation. Ultimately, the idea is that, so benefits of a franchise is generally people already know the brand. So you've often got instant customers. So something like McDonald's is iconic all around the world. You could, all people need to see is the Golden Arches, and they know what they're going to expect. Most McDonald's stores in this country are relatively busy all the time. And that is because everything's done in a certain way. This also means that McDonald's UK has a lot of control over how you run your own business. So although it's your own business, you still are answerable to someone. If you do not do things the way that McDonald's UK tells you what to do, they can revoke your license and shut you down. So there are risks as well in being a franchisee, and if you don't follow the rules. So although you might be a sole trader and you don't have a boss, ultimately you're still answerable to someone when you are a franchisee. So a good thing to remember, franchisee is the person who's taken on that business. Franchisor is the person who's giving away part of it, letting somebody else trade under their business. So McDonald's is the franchisor. I was opening up my own store, I'd be the franchisee. So here we're also looking at the options as well. So why might Mr. Johnson want to set up a burger restaurant by himself? He won't have to pay. He can do whatever he wants in creating the burgers. He can make his own specials. He can change the prices at his own will. He can also find his own suppliers to supply the products for him. But with McDonald's, if he's paying for the name, what does he really get for all of that money? He gets some instant customers, but there's very little control that he will get for that. So other examples that we've got here from well-known businesses that use franchising to expand their operations include Subway, McDonald's, Starbucks, Pizza Hut, Thornton's Chocolates, Molly Maid, which I believe is juices maybe. No, it might be, sorry, a cleaning company, and Pronto Print, which is a printing company. So a lot of these businesses tend to be services rather than producing goods. But Pronto Print is an example where they produce goods as well as part of that business. Also, there are professional services which you can be a franchise as well. So some examples include accounting companies or gardening companies. They trade under one particular brand, but ultimately it's these sole traders who go off and service different parts of that business. So any type of most service businesses that you can sell to somebody else, you generally have that flexibility there. So you can turn that business into a franchise, and ultimately these people pay you to use your brand name. And you generally, for that, you give them a good brand image, and you generally pay for all the advertising and so forth. And it works like a good working relationship, but both parties get to make money. All right, next exam practice. So discuss the drawback of an owner of setting up a business as a franchisee. A franchisee is the person who is taking on the business. That's me taking on McDonald's, opening up my own McDonald's store as a franchisee. So what would be the drawback? So I've given you a couple in what we were talking about before. This is a 6-mark question. So remember, you need 2 BLTs. And because we want you to focus on 2 negatives, so the drawbacks. So pause your video here, give yourself 6 minutes on the clock, and work out the drawbacks to the business. 1.4.2 is business location. So there's a few things that you need to be aware of when we're setting up a business location. To some businesses, it's more important than others. So factors that will influence a business location. So I want you to think about these as your ideas to remember so that you can expand on these in an exam question. So proximity to market, where your customers are, where your labor, where your workers are, materials, so what resources you're going to need for your business, where your competitors are, and transport, the nature of business activity. So here's just a few examples so that if you've got a manufacturing business, you may require specialist resources to be transported to your site and specialist facilities for removal of waste. So these are things that you need to be aware of in your process. If you're too far away, it can increase your costs to have people come to deliver the goods and stuff to your really remote business and things like that. If you're an exporting business, you might need access to docks, rail, and airports. So because your business is purely around sending things off to other countries and other places, you obviously need to have good connectivity so that your stock can go without having to pay all this extra shipping within the country. You need it so it's literally good to go so it can get to your customers faster. In retailing, you may need to be situated on a busy high street to gain the benefits from passing trade and being located in an area where customers tend to shop. This could also involve being close to your competitors and things like that. So when customers could walk into your competitors, the trick is to get them to walk into your store. These are the things that also influence. In tourism, you might need to be popular tourist attractions such as beaches and famous landmarks. So if you're selling, trying to think of if you're in a business in Brighton and you're selling towels that say, beach towels that have Brighton Beach on there, ultimately you might need to be somewhere near that beach in order to make that business effective. Otherwise, there's no point selling towels for beaches in Wokingham because we're so far here from Brighton Beach. So it wouldn't be that effective. So thinking about where you're located for your business to be in a more useful practicality. Before we go into the practice question, what I would like to highlight, if you think about as well, a car manufacturing company might not need to be anywhere close to their competitors. They might not be close to the people who are buying cars because ultimately they're a factory. They need somewhere cheap to produce. They're probably going to need to be close to labour and resources would be more important than where customers are. Because once the cars are built in the factory, then they're going to be shipped out to dealerships all over the world. So thinking about that of what's important to a business, they don't need a busy high street location. So they can keep the costs down by being more remote. But they have to make sure that they can't be too remote because they need employees to work at that factory. So explain one impact of the internet on the location decision of a business. So we haven't really talked about the internet yet. But the internet is a business location in itself. So I want you to think of one impact of the internet on the location decision of a business. That's a 3 marker, just a BLT. Pause your video here, 3 minutes on the clock. Let's keep going. So 1.4.3, the marketing mix. This gets brought up a lot. You should be familiar with it, but make sure that you really know your 4 Ps. So product, price, place, and promotion. Now, it's known as the mix because each ingredient affects the others, and a mix must overall be suitable for the target customer. The whole idea is that each one of these 4 on their own can't really stand alone, but together, obviously different businesses have a different focus on which of the 4 Ps are more important to them, just like we talked about in business location, but ultimately they all need to be considered in order to get the product sold and off the ground and to be successful for their target market. So quickly with price is how much a business will charge for their good being sold or service provided. When you're thinking of price for your target market, you're thinking about how much your target market can afford. If I'm producing an item and I want to sell it to people in high school, most high school students don't have part-time jobs, they don't have their own money, but they are often relying on their parents or carers to pay for the goods. So generally things need to be far more price conscious because they don't have a lot of their own money. So these could be the types of things that you might consider. There's obviously other considerations for price, but this is the idea. So which pricing method you would use? Product is the actual good and service that a business provides. So it's what is that actual product? What is the thing that they are trying to sell to that target audience? And that could be, remember, products can be goods or services, so tangible or intangible. And basically, what is it that that target demographic is going to want that product for? Promotion is the activities of how you're going to make people know about your product. So this is about how you're going to, first of all, let your target audience know that the product is available, but also why they should want it. So how you're going to promote it to them. So which strategy you're going to use. It's about raising the awareness. Is it going to be really explicit, or is it going to be something that's just going to, every time a pop-up ad comes on your phone when you're using an app, someone is paying for that ad to appear in front of you. That is someone's promotion strategy. But putting up a billboard somewhere, that could be another strategy, just having that people have that brand awareness. The more people that see the brand, whether people are buying the brand or not, some objectives are just for people to recognize the brand. So promotion is really important, but in different factors for different businesses. And then place. Place considers where people will be able to buy the product and where it's going to be distributed. So that could be, is it going to be available in a high street store and you buy it online? how people are going to access the product, basically. So when Apple brought out their iPhone, they originally, you couldn't buy it online. You could only get it from an Apple store, which is why people lined up for weeks for the original Apple iPhones, because that was the only place they could buy it and it wasn't readily available anywhere else. So that's all part of the strategy of how people build hype to get products to their target audience. So the term that we talk about, integrated marketing mix, that's the idea that you basically cannot look at one of these factors alone. So in this example I've got for you here, a Marlboro handbag sold in John Lewis. The price is £1,095 and it's advertised in Vogue. The idea is it's targeted at a wealthier demographic. That's not to say that non-wealthy people can purchase it, but they're putting it in advertising in magazines and things like that. So if you think about other magazines like GQ or Men's Health or Women's Health and things like that, there's often some really expensive items in the mix because it's all trying to build into this idea of what it is to be this modern person. So it's part of the branding, it's part of the way that they're trying to target their markets in the way that you feel. So, but by having expensive goods, people then start to recognize it as a status symbol. That's why a lot of people walk around wearing your Nike jumpers and things like that, because they become a status symbol. So it's more than just the price. You want it to be available and being able to purchase for your target audience, but it's also aspirational at the same time. So it considers all four of those P's before it actually releases its products. So an integrated marketing mix will have a look at who their target market is, the nature of their competitors in that market, the actions of the competitors. So what are your competitors doing to try and take that part of the market? What type of product it is, whether it's an essential item like a food item or basic clothing, or whether it's like a luxury item, so like a fancy car or something. So where the product is in its life cycle. So is it a brand new product? Is it the new iPhone that's just coming onto the market? Or is it a product that's been around for a while and they might try and re-advertise it or, bring the price down because it's a dying product. So they try and, keep the product alive a little bit longer. The level of differentiation that can be achieved. So for example, a lot of cars now have differentiated products within the product. So you might be getting one particular model, but this model has like all these extra safety features and sensors and screens and cameras and all these other things. Whereas another model might look the same on the outside, but it doesn't have all the special features on the inside. So you can still have a differentiated product there as well. If an idea can be patented, so do you have the rights? You're the only person that can sell a particular idea, or ultimately, is it something that other people can compete on at the same time? The brand name and reputation of the business. So we think about, Nike versus Primark. So what can those businesses do with their integrated marketing mix? And the business's objectives. What is it that the business actually wants to achieve? Is it a high profit? Is it brand awareness? Is it market share? Thinking about those things will help how you define the important ideas within your marketing mix. This was just an example that we had for an older iPhone. I'm not going to go into it. We've talked about product, price, place, and promotion. Here are some examples of some businesses that focus on different areas of the 4Ps because of just what their business is. So you think of a discount supermarket like Lidl or Aldi, or a low-cost airline who compete on price. Their idea is that they're going to be cheaper than the other major competitors in that market. When you look at something like a promotion, these are the ideas where your business is pretty much set standard. You've got lots of competitors, lots of people doing the exact same thing. So you focus on promotion as a means of differentiating what you can do. So when we talk about soap powders all pretty much do the same thing. Ultimately, it's all around how many people are going to buy it for you, because if you walk down the aisle at Sainsbury's, you've got, 30 different producers who make soap powders. How do you choose which one? Well, often it's the advertising, where you recognize their brand from and things like that. Sometimes that can even be the price, but ultimately how you get that, how people are going to buy your product is through promotion. Generally, you don't buy something you've never heard of before or you find questionable. Same with furniture. Everyone needs furniture. You can buy furniture all over the country. It's about how you promote yourself. So as a furniture retailer. Other ideas of where your product is more important. So like a luxury motor vehicle or a tailor-made holiday I've got there, that's the idea where your actual product is something unique for your target audience. You are literally creating that product for specific demographics. You generally, even if you are, designed a Jaguar car, as much as you'd like more people to buy them, it's only a few people in the population that can afford to just fork out all of that money for a designer car. And then place, again, this is the idea where it's very comparable. It's like a convenience store or a coffee shop. So for a coffee shop, most people aren't going to travel across the country to go to a coffee shop. So these are things that, how do you advertise? So your place for your local business, how do you get your local customers to come to you versus your other local competitors? So focusing on the place. Also, you're not going to create a coffee shop down a little side street where no one's going to walk past. You need that place as the focus. You need to be visible. You need to be convenient for people to walk past and walk in and buy coffee. Make sure you know that you're 4Ps and that you're really comfortable with the marketing mix, because I haven't seen one paper that doesn't really consider the marketing mix for paper one. There's normally a couple of questions, so just be really clear on what those 4Ps do and think about how you can unpack those ideas. So I want you to explain one impact of changing customer needs on the marketing mix of a business. This is a 3-marker, it's 1 BLT. Explain one impact of changing customer needs on the marketing mix of a business. So sometimes it might help think of an example. Use your example to help you unpack your ideas to make sure that your examiner really knows what you're talking about. Show them that you know. All right, 3 minutes, pause the video here, and we'll keep going. Okay, we're almost there. Like I said, it was a shorter video. So this is 1.4.4, business plans. So your definition for a business plan is a plan for the development of a business, giving forecasts of items such as sales, costs, and cash flow. So basically, a business plan is a living, breathing document. It's not just something that someone creates at the start of a business and hope for the best. It's generally something that they can update and keep. Some businesses will update their business plan every 3 months because the business keeps changing. Other businesses will just generally update it every year, because the idea is you can't plan too far ahead. So you're forecasting your sales and your costs for the year in your business plan, but you might also have in there, you'll have like things like a SWOT analysis and things like that. So what are your competitors doing? What are your opportunities for the year? What are the threats for your year? Other things that owners will include in their plans will include what resources you're going to need to open your business or keep the business going, how the financial performance has been over the last year if you've been in operation, but also where you're going to get the money from for the next year. So how you're going to invest the money that's coming in for the next year, how you're going to run the business. So that could incorporate things of how you're going to recruit staff, how you're going to keep staff, how much money you're going to dedicate it to staff engagement and things like that. It's going to include all your marketing details, so your marketing mix, your 4Ps, how you're going to tell customers about your products, how are you going to advertise and promote sales in your business. And also, when we talk about forecasting, is how much money you expect to make in the first 12 months, or in some cases in the next 12 months, and what you've done in the last 12 months and so forth. So a business plan is really important, especially when you're starting your business, because this is your idea. It's also got what you're going to have in there is when the risks come up, how you're going to mitigate the risks. So what are the things that you need to do to make sure that your business, that you're going to minimize the risk of business failure? All right. I'm not going to go too much into business plans because it encompasses so many things, but it's those ideas of all the things that you need to have in there. So my next 3-marker for you is explain one reason why a bank might be interested in a business plan. This is just 1 BLT. Give that a go. Pause the video here. Everybody else, let's unpack those ideas. All right, sample answers. Again, these are not, you can answer your questions in multiple ways. These were just suggested answers, what you can do for those questions. As long as you are unpacking your ideas and your ideas are linked and you're addressing the question, you should be able to get those marks. So what happens when a business becomes a private limited company? The answer is incorporated. So when they are incorporated, they are a corporation, but they become incorporated, and that is when they move to a limited liability and there are shareholders. The shareholders are the owners. There's not individual owners anymore. You can still have a single shareholder who owns the whole business, but they are a shareholder, not just a business owner. So discuss the drawback to an owner of setting up a business as a franchisee. So this was a 6-marker, so you needed the 2 BLTs. So one drawback is that a franchisee cannot choose where to get suppliers from, because this means they cannot shop around for a cheaper alternative, leading to the inability of reducing their variable costs by finding another supplier for less, therefore unable to improve their profit margins in economic downturns. Another drawback is having to pay royalty fees to the franchisor. because even if sales are poor, you're still required to pay them for the use of their business name. This leads to increased risks for your business as you are personally responsible. Therefore, a thorough check of franchise performance should be done before taking on a business as a franchisee. Always try to unpack your idea. So you've got your idea and try and unpack it 3 times. If you cannot, give it 2 really good reasons, but start to think about breaking up your sentences. If there's 2 ideas within your sentence, make them into 2 smaller sentences. Let your examiner know that you can unpack that idea, that you understand that idea completely. Avoid waffle if you can. Explain one impact of the internet on the location decision of a business. So this was a 3 marker. Development in internet speeds and availability has meant entrepreneurs can set up their businesses from home. This is because they can sell their products via a website or internet store rather than having a physical outlet. This has led to businesses only needing somewhere to store their products, which doesn't need to be an expensive high street location. Therefore, this would reduce their fixed costs and improve profitability. The next question, explain one impact of changing customer needs on the marketing mix of a business. 3 marker. As customers' trends change, a business may need to update the features of its products. This would lead to a cost implication in designing and updating the product. Therefore, the business may need to increase its prices to cover the costs of development. So it's just finding what one impact of those things are and making sure that your 2 follow-up points is explaining why that is a legitimate reason. So you generally get 1 mark for the reason itself and 2 marks for your impact. If you can get a 3rd impact out of it, although you may not get an extra mark, you can be sure to get those 3 marks in case your examiner thinks your answer is a bit too general. If your answer is general, they do not give you a mark. So try and be as specific as you can. So this was the last question. Explain one reason why a bank might be interested in a business plan. 3 marker. A business may be asking the bank for a loan to cover their startup costs. Before the bank would lend them money, they would want to be sure the business has a high chance of success. Therefore, as the business plan has financial forecasts, the bank will be able to judge if the business is likely to have enough money to cover the repayments. The bank can also still, even if you've got all that in there, the bank can still decline the request for the loan to start up a business. So all of these things, you can expand on this further. You can go a different direction of why the bank could be interested in the business plan. There's lots of things that you can unpack with a business plan. All right, that's it from me. We're almost there at the end of theme 1. What we'll get you to do is, keep doing those practices, look at those questions, and we will see you for 1.5.